Hello and welcome to the Village Preservation Society Town Board Candidates Debate. My name is Kathleen Cunningham. I'm the Executive Director, and it's my privilege today to host the three town board candidates who are running for office this election cycle. The Village Preservation Society has participated in the town board election cycle for probably 15 of those cycles, and mainly because village residents are also town residents, and we have many of the same concerns that town residents do. So I want to thank our candidates for making time today to come and help us with this public service presentation, and thank LTV for their support and helping us to give this all to you. So that's my introduction, and I'm going to explain that each of the candidates will have a 1-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement, and then I will try to fit as many questions into that remaining time that will equal an hour as possible. So we're going to start with town councilman, the incumbent Ian Calder-Piedmont. And Ian, I'll pass it over to you to give your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, East Hampton Village Preservation Society, and thank you, LTV, for hosting. I guess I just want to start by saying something that we all know, which is that East Hampton's an incredibly beautiful and special place, and I see the role as the town board to make sure we keep it that way, to preserve it, and also to provide new opportunities. Obviously, that means preserving our environment and our natural beauty that draws us all here and makes us enjoy life here. But also, I believe we need to provide opportunities for our middle class, for our workforce, and for the small businesses that support our year-round community. Now, in my non-governmental life, I'm a farmer and small business owner myself, and a blue-collar guy, so I understand the challenges that come with affordability and being able to live here. So I bring that to the table. I also have a long history of public service with over 12 years in the planning board, nearly 2 years on the town board. And I think I've demonstrated the ability to engage in constructive conversations and come up with common sense solutions. I was going to go on to talk about affordable housing because I think that's one of the key issues, but hopefully that comes up later.
Okay, and that wasn't half as bad as I thought it was. Okay, thank you, Ian.
Half as bad as you thought it was.
No, I mean my alarm sound. Sorry. No, usually my alarm sound is some god-awful
Set the
thing that we
expectations
might...
low, yes. I'm kidding.
Probably. Not what I meant.
That wasn't that bad.
So not what I meant. I thought that was a calming sound.
It's good.
Okay. J.P. Foster is a Republican town candidate for town council.
Yes, my name is J.P. Foster. I was born and raised on the East End. I raised my 2 children here. They both went to East Hampton High School and school district throughout. My wife is from here. My family dates back somewhere around the neighborhood of 400 years in East Hampton on both my mom's side and my dad's side. My dad's side was from Southampton. I've served our town I just ended my career with the Village of East Hampton after a little over 35 years. And it's a little odd not to have to show up at work, and it's the middle of a work day, and here we are. I served for the last going on 13 years on the school board. I've been the president for just over 12. I am on the LTV board, and I wanted to thank the Village Preservation Society and LTV. I'm the chair of the LTV board right now. Community service is something that I've always done. I think I've done it for my whole life, and I want to continue.
Great, thank you. Okay, Kate, I'd like to introduce Deputy Supervisor Kate Rogers, another incumbent, and if you'd like to make your opening statement, please.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, and thanks to the Village Preservation Society for this opportunity. I'm Kate Rogers. I'm running for town board on the Democratic and Working Families line. I'm also endorsed by the Long Island Federation of Labor and Eleanor's Legacy. I do have the reputation of as a fighter, and that is because I am unwavering in my pursuit for solutions to the issues that we face. I've lived here for 20 years and got involved pretty much right from the get-go of landing in such a beautiful place with such a close, tight-knit community. Because I believe in no fight is won by yourself, I collaborate and seek input on every action that I take. And because of that, I was able to deliver addressing issues, protecting neighborhoods from overdevelopment, expanding affordable housing opportunities, getting the South Fork Wind Farm online, dealing with coastal resiliency, and guiding principles for sustainability. And I hope we talk more about those with our talk.
Okay, great. We're doing great. You're all doing great. Thank you. Okay, so the first question is a big one, and I guess maybe I'll start. I'll give it to you, Kate, and then we'll, you know, work from there. So, but everyone is going to answer this question. So, the town faces powerful pressures from overbuilding, traffic, and the lack of workforce housing. These challenges impact the character of our historic villages, overburden the infrastructure, erode the quality of life, and threaten the fragile natural environment that makes our town so special. In an era where there are those calling for the abandonment of regulations and others calling for even greater restrictions, how do you approach these issues, and what do you think is the right way to find a balance?
Well, I think that in amending the zoning codes this past in my first term is a really good example of what that kind of work that looks like. And you do have a lot of competing forces in the town, but I think what we have to remember is that our working families and our environment is the backbone of our economy. So everything needs to be in balance and work together. And we also have a comprehensive plan that was put together by the community that stated the goals of this community that was adopted in our town. So following both of those, I led the amendments through a 22-month period, did tremendous research and collected data on what we actually were seeing happening, not just kind of having an idea of what we've heard or what's going on. Brought our town staff together for a amendment group, building inspector, planning director, code enforcement, natural resources, town attorney's office, and then some folks from the community as well, worked alongside with a business group that was formed by Chris DeSuno and had members of surveyors in the building community, land use lawyers, and put forth what we thought was the best idea for the town. It did get adopted, and I think that's the kind of template for dealing with these competing forces. But if we don't address the threats to our natural resources and our working community, then we're in danger of losing those important assets that create our economy.
Okay, great, thank you. Gosh. Okay. JP, your turn.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a balance, and I think balance has to be a big part of the conversation. And I think sometimes, while I agree with a lot of what Kate said, as far as having, you need to retain the beauty, our water quality, our natural beauty. It's beautiful, and I think at the time in my life, how much East Hampton, Sag Harbor, Southampton has changed is tremendous. And I'd like to think of myself as not being as old as I am, but to see the change is dramatic. And I think, my ancestors that lived here, hundreds of years ago, no one probably imagined it to be what it is today. But I think you have to strike that balance, because I think we are pushing a lot of our local families away. The fact is, not everyone can stay. It's just a fact. But I will also say that I think we have to create more of a balance. I think the law that Kate was talking about, I think it had maybe some unintended consequences. I think it affected Springs and some of the underserved, urban rural lots that are small. It affected them in a greater way. And I think we just, it just needs a little bit more tweaking. And I'm not saying that we didn't have issues, because no one can kind of deny that. But I think smaller steps and just steps in general to get to where we need to go was a little bit more of what we need to look at and focus on. I would like to see more community input on that process, and I know a lot of people were talked to and consulted, but I think, each hamlet has that, what Montauk needs, what Springs needs, what Waynescott needs, they're all very, very different. The lot sizes are different. So I think that's something that needs to be revisited, and I'd like to see that happen.
Great, thank you. Ian?
Yeah, as the previous, candidates have said, overdevelopment is a concern, as you clearly understand as well. As I said in my opening, we need to preserve what we have. East Hampton's an incredibly special place. All places change over time, but we don't want to lose the soul of what we have here. And so obviously, I think we need to think about development carefully. You also mentioned traffic, and I think it's interesting to note that sometimes the worst traffic is actually importing our workforce. you know, the trade parade or the rush hour in the morning and the afternoon coming east in the morning and west in the afternoon is about the worst traffic you'll see out here sometimes. And so I think that says a lot too. I think that while we need to protect against development, we also need to have a whole community here, which means providing opportunities for our workforce to be able to live here, and that, you know, we'll get into affordable housing hopefully at some point. Our middle class, as I said before, and we need to be able to have businesses that can thrive here, and again, be a whole, complete community instead of importing our workforce. I think that you mentioned regulations. Some people want more, some people want less. I think we need regulations. I think we just need to do it thoughtfully to make sure that we're capturing and protecting against the harms that are out there, but also doing it with as light of hand as possible so that people going about their daily life and trying to run a business and live here are also able to do that. That's all complicated. There's a lot of things in play, but I'm fundamentally an optimist, and I think we can do all things at once. I think that, you know, with proper zoning, smart regulations, we can both encourage, you know, smart development and protect against overdevelopment.
Great. You guys are doing great with the time too, by the way. Thank you for that. Okay, now this next question has 5 parts, of course. So I'm going to read the whole thing, and then if you can just, they're related issues, but how important to you is the historic preservation of our community? Do you support an amendment to the CPF legislation that would allow a portion of those funds to be used for preservation or maintenance of historic properties? Do you support outreach and education for the community to create a better understanding of the contribution of historic preservation to real estate and home values? Let's start with those 2, because that's those 3 actually, and then I'll tag on the other 2. So we started with Ian.
You started with me.
I started with you, I'm sorry. JP, you're next. Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. Okay.
The short answer, yes, of course. And I think our history is why I'm here. You know, yesterday I had the pleasure to sit with Kate, and we talked about some things at the Lester building on the corner of Cedar Street and North Main Street. And, you know, I know it's the Lester family, but my family derives from that area, and I believe that was a descendant of mine in one way or another at one point. And I think that, you know, it's important not only to preserve those properties, but also to sort of underscore who did live there and get the information out. Education portion of it, I support that as well. The CPF portion of it, yeah, I think that could certainly be adapted. I think we've done a great job in preserving land, and this would be another version of that. And it would, I know it right now, I know the structure portion of it gets a little tricky, but I think that is something that could also be looked at, and I would support. Just in general, we can't forget our history. You know, we can't forget where we all came from and how much we intertwined, and actually how much more we have in common than we realize every day. There was people there, and I'm looking around, I'm like, well, I kind of know I'm related to you, and we're putting the pieces together, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And I think that, you know, I think LTV can be a part of that, and that was part of the conversation yesterday as well, and the education side of it, interview some of our, you know, senior members of our community to bring that forward. And the funding is always the issue. So if, you know, CPF somehow could play a part in that, I don't know how, you know, that would be a tricky, you know, fix, but I think it's worth exploring, and I think you can make a balance in that.
Great, thanks. Okay, Ian.
Well, this is an easy one because obviously it's very important, so I agree with my the other candidates here. And I've been lucky enough, so historic preservation is incredibly important. I've been lucky enough to serve on the Property Management Committee in my time on the town board, which deals with CPF properties, with structures primarily, writing management plans and such. And actually, we are able to use 10% of CPF funds currently for historic maintenance. And one of my priorities since I've been on the board is to make sure that we do that. You know, the town has recently purchased several properties with historic structures, including the Dodge Parsons Homestead in Springs, the Osborne Farm Homestead in Wainscott, which is a symbol for all of us. The Fisher House in Montauk, and previously the Edwards House at Duck Creek, all of which are in desperate need of repair. And through my work in the Property Management Committee with Scott Wilson, the Director of Land Management and Acquisition, and that committee, trying to prioritize how to make sure we maximize the use of that 10% of the funds so that they don't go to waste because they don't roll over. I think I've been effective in that so far, and I think that we have a good plan in the coming years that we're laying out to make sure that these properties are maintained and restored. So yeah, and as far as outreach and education, of course. I mean, look, part of governing is to make sure that you're governing for the people, and that means you need to explain what you're doing and why. and make sure people are on board. You know, our job isn't to just do things that we want. And I think everybody out there appreciates it. So it's making sure that we educate and explain why and how we're doing things.
Great, thank you. Kate?
Yes, well, historic preservation is essential to our community. We have such a rich history. And as someone who's second-generation American and only know my family's history and from when they landed on these shores fleeing fascism, I have such a deep appreciation for people's deep sense of how many generations and what their generations have done. And I have to say, Hugh King has been a tremendous mentor to us at the town board and supporting all of the CPF purchases and the historic purchases. I do think that there are areas in town whose history needs to be included, such as the people of Freetown, who's don't have a historic district, and their history is integral to our existing here. And also I see Wainscott also looking at structures being taken down in Wainscott with no protection, because if we don't protect them, that's what's going to happen. The structures will be removed, and as Prudence Carabine says, once it's gone, you can't get it back. So this tells us and reminds us always of the struggles that we had coming here, how people persevered, and how we overcame environmental issues, political issues, wars, and how strong this community became of it. And I don't think you can ever, never throw that away for anything new.
Oh, yes, thank you. Those are great answers, everybody. Nice job. These are also historic preservation questions, and I'm going to just tailor one of them with respect to the CPF funding. But anyway, the state of New York considers buildings of 50 years of age or older as historic and worthy of preservation in the right instances. A survey of historic buildings eligible for preservation in East Hampton hasn't been done for several decades. Do you support an updated survey of historic properties? And would you support creating a historic preservationist position in the planning department or some other functioning agency within the town to help to guide these things? Because as Ian was saying, there is a portion of the CPF funding that can be used for historic preservation, but who's guiding that? Is there a historic preservationist that's guiding it? Is it contract work, or is there someone who's, our feeling is it would be great to hire someone to put in that position to help manage all that, because things are only just getting older. We're not, anyway, so we'll start with Ian this time.
And we're getting older too.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think a comprehensive survey would be a good idea. I think that type of work is going on, maybe informally. But of course, I think it'd be great to understand, and as I laid out previously, I think you have to have a plan. So you have to look at what you're doing. You can't just do one thing randomly and then not have funding for the next thing. And so
Right.
prioritization is very, very important, and that perhaps could start with a comprehensive survey of historic properties. In terms of hiring a preservationist, I would have to, how departments work together and where that person would fit in with the planning department would be important. I will say this, that all the projects I mentioned that are going through the Property Management Committee will have, historically, an engineer has been involved, obviously, because the structural soundness is important. But each of the projects that we're working on will also have a preservationist involved to make sure that we're actually capturing the history. One example of this is in the Parsons Dodge homestead, which recently had a management plan crafted. One of the small structure perhaps was the house of Henry Mitchell, an important Native American here. And it was alluded to in Bob Hefner's report that perhaps that was, there. So we've decided to actually actively investigate that and peel back some of the newer layers. And we're trying to hire somebody currently to do that and investigate to determine, 100% whether that was his house or not, because of course, that would greatly impact how that property and that structure is used going forward.
Great, perfect timing too. Okay, JP.
So, yes, I think that comprehensive, study of our historic structures is a great idea. The town has done a lot, to put that into place. You can always do more. And I think maybe somebody that's sort of like a clearinghouse, so to speak, to just guide the process. I mean, the town board does a wonderful job. Some of the people involved, pieces, Hugh King, as you talk to, Hugh King needs to spend hours and hours here and just talk in front of our cameras for, historical purposes to capture that information. But I think if you had somebody to help guide the process, it would help, someone to take the individual historians, because I know there's different levels of historian, experts. So maybe somebody that could help guide and coordinate that would make sense to me. Again, putting it into a department, where do you put it? I think that's something that has to be discussed. But I would support overall, looking at that. I think that, the older everything gets, the more everything, at this point, everything's becoming more historic. And I think you need to look at everything a little 50 years, my God,
Yeah.
I fall in that category at this point.
Same.
So, let's look at that as a point. And if you can put some sort of group leadership in that sense to coordinate it, I think it makes sense.
Great, thank you. Okay, Kate?
So I think a survey is critical. Again, just like the zoning code amendments, doing the research, finding the data, not making up things as you go along, but actually basing things in fact is critical for us to be able to make decisions and to be able to educate the public. I'm not sure about a town employee historic preservationist. I like the idea of the independent voices coming to the town and giving us an independent survey of what is in town. You also have civil service, et cetera, to deal with. So I would have to look at the benefit of actually having a town employee versus these independent voices that have studied their entire lives, their subjects, giving us advice, and working with the property management committee and CPF committees. But I think the first step is critical for a historic survey in our town. That is a requirement to be able to create historic districts as well. So it has a practical function besides a theoretical one.
Great, thanks. Okay. We're on to page 2. Okay, so, I'm losing track. I started with you. I started
JP
with
goes-
Jay.
go-
Oh, you.
I think you go first this one. I think it's
You
because
go
we
first.
went.
I think that's right,
Wherever you
yeah, I think that's
Did
it.
you,
I
is
mean,
that,
you all.
is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Is that right?
started, yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so working with former state legislator Fred Thiel, 20 years ago, a study was conducted by Five Town Rural Transit, which indicated that the 5 East End towns contributed over $40 million to the MTA in the form of various taxes, including real estate transfer tax, which is obviously a volatile, data segment. Would you be willing to collaborate with the other East End towns to fund a study to estimate what that contribution is now to possibly leverage better service from the MTA?
I think this is a question we could all answer in about a second. Yes, absolutely. I feel, as Ian said about importing workers and the struggles that people face sitting on a highway for hours and hours and hours, and how that magnifies all of our traffic studies, even, the blessing of now finally having an emergency room close by, so you're not thinking of how long it takes people to get across our towns is an improvement. These systems were put in place such a long time ago, and we put in so much money to the MTA, and what do we get back? It's taken us hours of lobbying, days and days of pushing the MTA to repair a bridge that's essential in the town. We're lobbying constantly for a siding so that we can have more commuter connection trains helping our workforce get here without the trauma of the traffic, and attracting more workers to the town for the folks that can't afford to live here anymore. So I think that's an easy absolutely, and let's not forget about the huge amount of hotel taxes that go up west and go to the state from our hotels. And I feel we don't see representation in that in what comes back.
That's a good point, and I'm going to write that down, hotel taxes, because I forgot about that. I remember when there was supposed to be some kind of a citizen action about that back a couple of years to withhold that tax, to push some leverage on the state level. Anyway, another time. Yes, JP.
I think Kate said it probably, yes. I don't think you can't not look at that at this point. I think the town, the school districts, and I was a part of that as well, is pushing for commuter trains. I know a lot of our teachers take it. I know a lot of employees at the village take it. They take their e-bike from headquarters. I see them leaving in the morning, zipping up the street to catch the train. Listen, we need more of that. We need more, scheduling, because people get off work different times of the day. I think that we do contribute a lot. I know I contribute to that. I think everybody sitting at this table contributes to that tax. You kind of look at it and you're like, well, when's the last time I was on the train? I'm fortunate enough not to have to commute to work or commute to any place. Unless if I want to go to New York, I could go on the train, I suppose, but the last time I went there was a while ago. So at the end of the day, I think that we have to look at it. I think that's one of the facets of affordable housing. I mean, affordable housing is not a one silver bullet issue, so you have to attack it from all sides. And I think transportation is a big part of it. The train being probably the key role in that that solution. And more trains, the sidings is something that has been talked about for a long time, and getting them to do it. I think if you put a study together with numbers and showed the MTA how much we paid from our just small portion, but add the other East End towns into it, I think it's a sort of a no-brainer.
Great, thanks. Ian?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, of course. And I think that as Kate said, the commuter train has been very successful, but we need more of it. I'm a big believer, as I've stated already, that we need to have a complete community, which means, our workers, a good chunk of our workforce and businesses being able to operate right here at home. But there's no question, geographically speaking, because of affordability, that's not possible for everybody. And so we absolutely need convenient transportation in and out of East Hampton. And a lot of town workers use that service as well. But beyond just importing workers and having people being able to commute here for work, I think we need more trains generally. If anybody's had the opportunity to take a train from East Hampton to Montauk for lunch it's a great experience. They just don't run frequently enough. And I don't understand why we can't have more local transportation that people can use for their daily life in addition to just getting home and to and from work.
Great, thanks. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to Ian.
It's JP.
I think it's me, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Why
I
can't-
was okay with going in,
self-identify.
but, I have to
Great.
own it.
Thanks for keeping track of that for me. I'm losing that part. Okay, so what role can government play in keeping retail options for necessary goods and services available in the local community?
Well, that's a great question. I think that, a strong Chamber of Commerce, for one, and I think East Hampton's Chamber of Commerce has really stepped up in the last few years. That is certainly a avenue for expansion there. It's difficult because we have the seventh grade economics of life, which is supply and demand, and our rents are high because our building prices are very high. So people need to pay for those properties in rent in some form or another. So I don't know how you could regulate it unless you did it through some sort of a tax relief, maybe. I think it's very difficult for us to really legislate that, and I'm not sure that would be the right option to do that anyway. But I think that's a tough tale. We've been talking about that for I don't know, my whole life. So, and there's been no silver bullet to fix that as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Kate, you want to go?
Yes, well, I think that this loss of a year-round economy is greatly impacting our businesses here. I'm more familiar, of course, with what happens in Montauk and the shutting down of a year-round economy that's happened out there. And I know how it's connected to housing, affordable housing for year-round workers and for folks. And that's why when I secured the $600,000 grant for the resiliency of our business communities, not only recovery after a storm, but to see how we can use our tools in government and throughout the community to sustain a sustainable year-round community. We're losing ourselves in very many ways, and the loss of year-round businesses having the ability to open year-round, it puts a strain on all of us. And I think it puts a strain on those businesses too. Because when you really get out there and you start to talk to people, trying to make all of your money in that very short time period, it's enough to keep you going, but I don't know, I don't see that it's enough to keep keep you thriving. And that also leads into, say, what the impacts of the short-term rental industry are on our hotels. Now, where we, during season, have rooms available because people are looking to use commercialization in our residential neighborhoods. So that also is something that I know we can do something about and look forward to do something about. But it will take everyone to come up with a plan. But I look forward to finding out how we can use the tools that we have.
Great, thanks. Hold it over. Your turn.
Yeah, of course, I agree that government plays a role here and that it's incredibly important that we, again, coming back to this complete community, we need to be able to provide local goods and services and not import everything as sometimes the seasonal community does. I think that we do that through smart zoning, through smart regulations. I'm a believer in legislating to encourage people to act. I don't think that the government can come and fix this problem by ourselves, but I do think we can create opportunities for businesses and encourage the community to support them. I think that Kate brings up a very good point about short-term rentals. That's a problem that is growing out here, and I know that she's working hard on this right now. And almost anybody you talk to recognizes that as an issue. And I do think that the type of person who uses a short-term rental maybe isn't participating in local goods and services the same way our historic, year-round community or even seasonal community used to, for sort of the whole summer season or a whole month. So I really look forward to working with Kate on that. I know she's got some really good ideas and something that we all want to address. I will say that fundamentally, though, again, the government can't solve this whole thing. I think that one of the best things about East Hampton is the community itself. And I think that people need to decide to go and shop locally and buy local stuff. And I'm saying that with a little bit of bias because I own a local business that's year-round as a farm. So I'm optimistic, but this is a real challenge. It's a great question. So government certainly plays a role, as does everyone in our community.
Great, thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the commercialization of the neighborhoods and the hollowing out of the residential, the residential neighborhoods becoming more commercial with Airbnb and VRBO, and as Kate brought up, the impact it has on the hotel industry, which the entire state is dependent on the hotel industry taxes. That's the Montauk hotel industry is a huge portion of not only the state budget, but the county's budget. What do you propose to do about addressing that? What is the role government can play in that particular problem in governing the commercialization of residential neighborhoods? Please tell me who goes first. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is an incredibly important issue, and the government plays a fundamental role here because, we craft the laws that says what people are and aren't allowed to do. So we have to both make smart laws that are simple and direct and understandable, and then also enforceable. And so I think we frankly have some work to do there. The economy is evolving all of the time, and so I don't think you can fault people who maybe didn't get it perfect on the first go. None of us will. So I think there's a lot of work to do, and again, I know that Kate is taking this issue on head on. And fundamentally, it is an issue of fairness. You can't have one set of rules for hotels and a totally different set of rules for somebody renting out their home. I also want to recognize the importance of people renting out their home to be able to stay here. Home rentals is part of our community, but there's a difference between renting it out every weekend to a different person or renting it out to one family who comes for a month or perhaps the summer and you move into a smaller place. I think the same issue applies to Uber and taxis. Again, we have old regulations that were meant to address an economy that this doesn't exist anymore, that's really, really changed. So this is an incredibly important issue because I think we need to embrace people visiting in our seasonal community, but we've got to do it in the smart, right way and make sure that, again, there aren't people coming in for just a couple of days to sort of take advantage, but people who become part of our community.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm not sure, is it me next? I'm not sure.
Not
So
sure.
I'll go if you
Go.
want. I'll go.
Okay. You go.
All right. So I think this drills right down to the root of a lot of our issues. It's enforcement. I think that, with enforcement comes the caveat of you have to have rules that are enforceable. And I know we struggle there. Maybe the answer is to ban the short-term rentals. I mean, I don't want to hurt people that are trying to rent their home. I rented my own home before, but not for a week, not for less than even a month. And maybe we go back to the old model in East Hampton, which was everyone rented for a month or more. I have one right on my street. I won't say any more than that. I've got 20 houses on my street, but it impacts all of us. And you know what? I know they're breaking the law. You know what I'm saying? I know that they're doing, and I've complained about other houses, in my vicinity, and I think the laws are a bit weak, and I think proving it makes it that much harder. So if you banned the short-term rental, it'd probably be easier to enforce. I don't want to hurt anyone, but we're sort of attracting people that weren't here to start with to come here, buy a house, and rent it as a hotel. They're running it as, truly, you talk about commercialization, it's a full-blown business. They might use it for a few weekends here and there. They may come out for a holiday if it doesn't rent. But at the end of the day, they're using that strictly as a business. So I think we really need to take a real hard look at that. And, we have all kinds of rules. You can't have this many, cars parked in your driveway. I could drive through town at any point, and I think the rules are weak, and I think the enforcement is even weaker. And at the end of the day, we have to put invest some money into our code enforcement. We need to strengthen it from top to bottom, and we've got to give them the tools they need to do their job. I mean, if we don't do that, we keep making laws, and that's it.
Okay, great. A little over there. Okay,
Sorry.
Kate, that's okay.
So this is an issue that came up when I was investigating what's driving our house prices and house sizes up so much in our community, even on the smallest of lots. And a lot of that has to do with the investment opportunity that you have in the short-term rental industry. That industry has grown from the tradition of somebody renting out their house to be able to sustain themselves, to investors and investment companies that advise people on how to maximize the hotelification of their home. This is not what our residential neighborhoods are for. Our residential neighborhoods are for places to people to live and thrive, rest and recreate, and raise families or raise dogs and pets. So this is not what the laws were intentionally written for. I think our code enforcement does a great job. There are constitutional protections that stop them from being able to barge into somebody's house or look how many times you rented out your house. However, there is technology that can help with this, and other municipalities are doing it. I haven't seen too many bans be able to withstand the legal challenges, but there certainly are many ways that we can protect our local folks who do this as a necessity for being able to afford living here as those opportunities disappear, and also stop people who don't even live here from buying up housing stock to maximize their economic portfolio. That's not what the intention of rental registry was or anything, but this is what has evolved. It's a global problem. There are many solutions that we can employ, and I'm looking forward to presenting them.
Great, thank you. Those are all great answers, everyone. Okay, I am going to go to fiscal, whoopsie, here we go, okay. Construction and landscaping noise, let's figure out who's answering. Thank you.
Me?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian, I really appreciate that.
Good round
I
robin call.
know it wasn't me, so.
Construction and landscaping noise, among other limits on the peaceful enjoyment of home and property, continue to irritate residents in spite of legislation governing them. How would you support code enforcement to better deal with these and other issues? Seemed like a good follow-up to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate.
Thank you, and I think this is a very important question for our quality of life, and it goes across everyone's life. The peaceful enjoyment, again, of your neighborhood is essential to your well-being. So we do have regulations on the books that when you can start. It's early, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Again, we have to look at, in order for code enforcement to be able to issue a violation, they have to catch somebody in the act. So if we're talking about like gas-powered leaf blowers that we have rules against, somebody calls, by the time code enforcement gets there, the folks are gone, and there's no other recourse in that area. I think we can tweak some of these laws because, say, the leaf blower, ban on gas leaf blowers, so it's expired in September, but there's not a leaf falling on the ground, so I don't see the use for it. But you also have to balance that with the full-time working families that only have certain times to be able to work on their own properties because they're busy making money for folks. So becoming too restrictive in this area doesn't benefit our neighborhoods either. It hurts people. So I know we talk about enforcement. People can just now make enforcement complaints on a portal online. They don't have to go in. They don't have to call. And that's helping us greatly with maintaining the quality of life issues. But you're always going to come up against this ability to balance what a private homeowner can do in their own time versus the perpetual noise of companies banging, banging, banging. I think we can do a better job at timing these things to create a better balance.
Okay, great, thanks.
It's
Who
you
wants
or
to
me.
I'll go.
Ian's
We'll
gonna tell us.
we'll go around this way.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? Because otherwise it's
Clockwise.
confusing.
We're gonna go
That's right,
clockwise.
okay.
It's too late for that, but it's okay, it's you.
So yeah, I agree with Kate wholeheartedly that, this is a concern that we hear from people a lot of the times. And it's important that we protect our quality of life and our peace and quiet enjoyment. I think that we also have to, as she says, respect the fact that individuals need to be able to work on their own home. This is an issue we run into. Sometimes you regulate for the, massive abusers of things, and you accidentally capture a small person, an individual that you don't mean to. And so this is where, it's not either you're for or against something, but smart, thoughtful regulations really, really are important here. Enforcement obviously is fundamental to all of this, and I think that brings us to the point that Kate said, you gotta be caught in the act, and then once you are, who gets the ticket? Is it the person who's been hired to hold the leaf blower, or the homeowner or the company owner? And it doesn't do any good to write a ticket if it's not gonna hold up in court. And that becomes a very sticky, tricky point here. Something we definitely need to address, I think, with balance.
Okay, great.
So I would say education is part of it, as far part of the licensing process. I think that people, as there's regulations to what you have to, the classes that you have to take in order to get your license in the town. So I think that should be included in it. Maybe the town could invite some people in with some demonstrations with electric stuff. I have some electric stuff. I happen to mow my own lawn most of the time. And I think on my street, there's 20 houses, maybe 2 of us mow our own lawn. So I appreciate that if I had to sneak one in on Saturday, it may not be as much of a problem anymore as it used to be, but I would want to do that. But at the same time, I'm considerate of my neighbors. I try to do it when I know my neighbors' kids aren't napping. I try to work around those regulations. I think, having some common sense and some common greater good helps everyone a bit. But enforcement, again, it's enforcement. And I think, we have quality of life issues that we all agree upon. Technology will help us with the electric stuff because it certainly works better than it used to, and it lasts longer. And I think the commercial aspect of it, they can use the bigger batteries that they can plug in, and you see it all over the place. But then you see the person trying to sneak the gas one in. I think enforcement is part of the key of this. And listen, if we educate the businesses and the workers, the summons goes to the worker. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's the way it has to be. You're the one that, if you're a truck driver, you get a summons. In some cases, the ticket will go to the company, but if it's on there, but if you're driving something that's not inspected, well, that's up to you to know what your rules are for the day. So, and I know that can be difficult for them to push back a bit, but if you don't issue a summons, well, we know where we'll be. We'll be where we are now, which is people use it anyway. And, maybe extending it, like Kate said, a little bit in September. My leaves drop very early. Mine start to drop in August. But you know what? My electric blower does it. I have sycamore trees, and they start in July, I think. They kind of drop year round. But, if you allow people to have a better piece of equipment in the electric category, like I do, it works pretty well,
Okay.
Can I just add
Please
to
do.
that? The thing about ticketing the worker, I don't know how you help solve the problem by doing that and ticketing the business. I think along with education, which we do, but also a broader sense of education to the community, not just the workers, but I think there is a point where it'll be the homeowner's responsibility as well, because you're
Yeah.
doing the hiring.
Especially with-
You're choosing the company and you're allowing what's happening on your property. So I think there is some responsibility of the homeowners as well, but education is totally key.
Yeah, can I just respond?
Yeah, sure.
I agree, and something, maybe it's a triggered mechanism. It goes to the worker, then to the business, and eventually to the homeowner. The homeowner might be there, might know what's going on, might not, but you know what? It's your responsibility whether you know or you don't. Hire someone, make them tell you that what they're going to use, what equipment do you use before you hire them. That's something that you could definitely do.
I think, well, I'm just going to chime in
Go
too.
for it,
No,
yeah.
one other thing I think is important is not all complaints are equal. There are some people who complain about any kind of noise whatsoever, and we do need to maintain the ability for people to earn a living, and individuals and even small businesses. So there's balance in here, and sometimes frequent complaints about something where it doesn't meet a threshold isn't actually helpful. So true.
Okay, good points. Great job, everybody. Okay, so I have one final question. I'm not sure who I'm addressing.
You went first last time? I can't even remember at this point.
I think it's you now.
I think it's me too. I think you went
It's
first last
fine,
time.
however
Okay,
we go.
okay, great.
We're all
I'll take it.
comfortable.
Yeah, we're all.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what advice would you give to an East Hampton High School seniors who wishes to remain in their hometown?
Wow, that is a fantastic question because I just faced that in my own family. I think there's several aspects to that. I think that we have to encourage them to get an education. I think we have to encourage them, whether that education takes them down a career path or like we have give you an example, a great example is we have our bus garage now, right? And we've got an automotive program. Those kids can go right into the workforce. We want you to be workforce ready or college, be prepared for college or the workforce, whichever one that you come out of that school with. We want you ready to go. You can go be a marine mechanic, you can be an auto mechanic, and you can make a nice living. I think save your money is the best advice I can give you because you're going to need it, and work really hard. Like, I feel like my generation came out and I could work 2 or 3 jobs, which I did, and I could be okay. I feel that that's the truth. But I think today, if you work 3 jobs, you can rent a room, and I think that's the hardest part of this. I think working hard and saving your money and make sure you get a proper education, whether that be in the workforce or that be in college, I think that's where you have to start. And you're gonna have to reinvent the way of life going forward for the next generation because it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very difficult.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Keith?
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult to advise a young person coming out of high school today, even with a college education. Let's even push it further to college educated or trade educated to be able to say, oh, well, you can live in the town of East Hampton when we don't have a house under $1 million. All of the efforts for housing affordability, I know that's also very, very dear to Ian's heart. As a business owner in the town, and my business isn't in this town, but I've been a business owner my whole life. This is critical to be able to turn to your, let's say it's even personal to your child and say, well, let's try to find you someplace to live. And working 3 jobs, that's tough to even be able to then actually have a life, just to be able to afford a room. So this is all of this this advice encapsulates all of our problems that we're facing right now. And I'm not sure I can say to a young person just starting out that you actually can live in East Hampton and work out remote work, but the standard of salary that you would need to be able to afford a mortgage when you're just starting out is out of reach for everyone. And that's a reality in the town. So that's tough advice because I know I have a 35-year-old son who just returned from living in California. And if he wasn't living in my house, even with college education and even with working, he wouldn't be able to live here. So this is where we are now, and we need, as we've said in the past, all hands on deck for housing opportunities, expanding the ADU opportunities where people can build on their land, the support from the community for the referendum to be able to fund our first-time buyers programs, et cetera. All of that is critical to be able to make that happen in the future.
Great, thanks. Ian?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because obviously it's a challenge to be able to live here. But I think, again, I'm an optimist. I think that we should encourage people to do what they want to do. And if somebody's set on living here, I think there are opportunities. Affordable housing especially is the most difficult challenge, but we do have a booming economy. I mean, there are all sorts of jobs in construction and landscaping and, electricians, plumbers. There's a lot that people can do. And I think if people are smart and work hard, there's a way to carve your way. And look, I've lived this firsthand. I came here. I'm not sure I would encourage anybody to become a farmer because that's not the easiest way to make a living for sure. But I came to East Hampton as a farmer, fell in love with the place and worked hard and have been able to carve out a life for myself. It's more difficult now. And that's why it's so important that we continue to address the affordable housing crisis. Kate mentioned ADUs. That's going to be a huge part of it. Again, we want to give people the power and the ability to solve their own problems. And ADUs will go a long way to doing that while we simultaneously continue to work on larger affordable housing projects and of all types. I recently introduced legislation for affordable multiple residence, which will allow affordable housing on smaller lots. So it's a complicated issue, but I think that somebody coming out of high school got the whole life ahead of them, and I would encourage them to think about the opportunity, be optimistic, and as their government representative, try to do everything I can to help them.
Okay, well, believe it or not, we're at the end of our time.
So fast.
It was so fast, and it was great. You guys were great. So we'll close, well, we'll go, and JP and Kate with your closing statements, okay?
Okay,
All
yeah.
right, great, then you've got a minute.
Okay, Kathy, just want to say thanks again for hosting this. This is great. I think we need to have more conversations like this all the time. What I bring to government is an open mind. I have a lot of experience both in private life and in public service, but there's a lot I don't know, and I'm always willing to learn. I embrace sort of healthy debate and dialogue, and I think that's how we all get better and have better laws and a better community. It's been an honor to serve. I think that we've got a lot of good things going with modernizing town governments, and I hope that I can win the vote and get reelected in November and continue to serve.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, JP.
Again, thank you very much. You did a wonderful job today. And thank the two people sitting on each side of me. Truthfully, they've done public service. They know what public service is. I get it, as do I. I was in a different, a bit of a different carve out of public service. And, while some of the stuff I'm catching up on because I've been involved in educational portions of my life for the last 12, 13 years, I do bring some, I think, great leadership qualities that the town could use. And I think that my experience, I've got private sector experience, I've got public sector experience, I've got government experience, I have school district, I've worked with civil service, unions, several unions. East Hampton School District has 375 employees, give or take, depending on the day. We face a lot of the same housing challenges as everyone else does here at the table, but we do it pretty well. I think we became a place where it's desirable to work, live, and make our children better. And I think the point I can bring to you is, I think in my life on the school board, it's always the focus is always on kids. And if you put kids first, you'll always be okay. And I think if you do the same, take it and apply it to the people of the town of East Hampton, put the people first in East Hampton, if you apply that first in every thought that you have, you'll be okay as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, Kate.
And I'll echo my fellow candidates with thanking you and the Village Preservation Society for opening up a forum where we can talk to each other about how we feel and express our opinions in public in a free space like this. For me, it's been a privilege to serve. Community service has always been a part of my life, and the privilege of helping find solutions for the issues that we face is what I feel like I'm meant for. And I look forward to again, the two parts of our community that are under direct threat is the working families in our town, our community in general, and our environment. So having ideas on bringing forth legislation to address the Airbnb, and I should say short-term rental platforms, and there are many of them, the impacts on the short-term rent that the rentals are doing, expanding childcare services for young families, because it's not enough to provide housing. We need to look at the services that go along with it. Protecting our business community and our natural resources is what I will focus on if I am reelected to the town board.
Okay, great, that was perfect, thank you. Okay, well I want to thank all our candidates. Thank you so much for making the time and for sharing your thoughts. This has been a great experience for me too. I want to remind our viewing public to make sure to go out and vote. Tuesday, November 4th, as my dear departed dad would say, if you don't exercise your franchise, you lose your right to complain. So be part of the process and help us guide our town forward. Thanks to LTV.